What a difference a year makes. We are now going to have an E3 2021 just 1 year after the complete disaster and total dissolving of E3 2020. Now, I get it. COVID was a pretty big thing. And in all fairness, it's still around right now. I think we may have a handle on it, but we're not quite there yet. As such, E3 2021 has announced it will be an entirely digital event, and I'd like to talk a little bit about that, as well as some of my thoughts and hopes and dreams in today's video. But you guys know, before we get into it, I would love for you guys to subscribe. It would really help my channel out quite a bit. And even if you don't love today's content, I would still love you guys to subscribe. All right, so E3 2021, as I said earlier, the 2020 variant was dissolved. They tried to make it an online thing, then they couldn't figure that out. They hired IM8-bit, that dissolved. The whole thing just totally fell apart. All right, so where are we now? Well, we are a year into a fully virtual world. I don't know about most of you, but I work almost entirely from home now. All of my meetings are done from home. All of the content I consume is done from home. All the food I get delivered comes to my home. The point is, I think we as a society may have started to figure out what a virtual world looks like. And we've seen state of play from PlayStation, and we have seen Xbox come out with conferences that were a little rough at the beginning, but notably have gotten better. We've seen some Nintendo Directs. So we're starting to see companies dabble a little bit more with what this means. The E3 umbrella around that, though, that is where obviously E3 needs to focus. They're going to have no control over what Big Daddy Phil says. They're going to have no control over what Jim Ryan babbles out or what's going on with Nintendo. What they're going to be able to do is they're going to be able to put a nice wrapper around all of that, and they're going to have to do it in a way that showcases both major AAA games as well as the smaller indie games in a creative, fun way to keep people engaged. I have to give credit to BlizzCon here, believe it or not. Good old Activision Blizzard. Although it was very, very light on content, I mean very light on content, BlizzCon Line, which took place earlier this year, BlizzCon Line was actually a very well done event. There was dedicated rooms to each of the various franchises, and it was very easy to navigate and to jump into a stream. Everything was on demand. It was very easy to navigate around and to see what was coming up, and I feel like that's where E3 is going to have to really kind of shine. So their webpage is very, very, very barren. You're about to look at the entire webpage now. Are you guys ready? Here it is. That is their entire webpage right now for their online site. They promise evolutionary access that's designed for you wherever you are. Well, most of us are going to be at home. I'm curious as to what this evolutionary access and this engagement will. And recall that prior to the E3 2020 falling apart, they were really pushing for streamers and content creators to drive their channel. And I think that's probably the best thing they can do again. But it can't just be, let's give Ninja an hour to ramble about whatever he wants, or let's have a cameo from Dr. Disrespect or something like that. I think where they need to have a little more structure is very similar to what Jeff Keighley did many years ago when he had a brief stint with YouTube, where he was putting out these very dedicated gaming panels where they had people on. They were talking about a specific topic for a specific amount of time, and it was very structured. And Jeff Keighley is very good at keeping everybody kind of on point. I feel like that's where this is going to shine. And I think back to some of my favorite E3s where I wasn't an actual attendee, and I think I spent a lot of time watching the PlayStation channel, where they would have somebody sitting on a couch and they would interview a person, they would have some gameplay, they'd talk to them, they'd go to a Twitch commercial break, and they'd come back with the next game, constantly showing what was coming up on the schedule, showing replays at night. They had Q&A sessions where you could write in questions and they may pick them, although I feel like they're all pre-baked questions, but you get the idea. outside of that, what evolutionary access do we need? I don't know of anything that would really come to mind. I know the Summer Games Fest that Jeff Keighley kicked off last year, I think largely was a interesting experiment. I mean, it was the better than nothing experiment. I know Steam has their games festival where they have a bunch of demos where they invite you to play along with the creators. They have everything at a reduced rate and a discount. I think that is kind of where this needs to go. But if it's really going to be that evolutionary, what can they do outside of that? I feel like we're in a better place now where we understand the limitations of virtual working. And I think we're in a better place now where we understand just how complex, which it really shouldn't be, but how complex it is to put together a virtual show. And I think that's where E3 is going to have to find a way to be entertained and engage other people, because really what happens is people are going to get their news elsewhere. So here is your official, and this is case in point, here is your official E3 page. Now I'm going to jump over to gamesindustry.biz, where they have an article talking about it, and they say, hey, we are already announced that E3 will return this year. Nintendo, Xbox, Capcom, Konami, Ubisoft, Take-Two, Warner Brothers, and Koch Media will be present. However, Sony, EA, Activision Blizzard, Sega, Bandai Namco, and Square Enix are currently no shows. Okay, that's interesting. But if you go back to this page and you try to kind of click through here to see who's going to show up or to see kind of what's going on or looking at the news, there isn't anything. It's just very, very basic and boring. There isn't a lot of detail here. It's already, these guys have already started to fill in the gaps. That's my point. That's where E3 needs to shine. It needs to be the place to be where everybody's going to be sitting on pins and needles. Who is going to say something next? E3 has to shore up those exclusive interviews, those exclusive first looks, the exclusives, whatever, to focus people back to this event, or it will dissolve under its own weight. It's very, very easy to have the after party, so to speak, after the original party, especially in a situation like this where media and leaking and news is going to be fast and furious. They've got to find a way to focus effort into that. I'm excited for it. I've always been a big fan of E3. I love the idea of E3. I was so fortunate to go to this event, not once, but twice. And I'm really curious to see what comes of it. I just hope that they can find a way to make it fun and engaging. I think this is fair enough to say that this isn't like the end of E3, not the doom and gloom that a lot of media published after 2019, where they felt like the public media or the public had kind of ruined the media experience. I think people will give E3 somewhat of a mulligan this year because we're still reeling from the effects of COVID-19. And while they do vow to have an on-person event in 2022, which I want to be at, this year is not going to be that. And I think we know that. So we'll have to wait and see. I am curious about it. We are now getting into the fun part of the year. Really now is where news is going to start picking up a little bit more. I suspect you're going to have all these other companies that aren't present standing up either their own events or announcing their plans as well. We're going to get into, that really big sales fever pitch leading into pre-order season, which leads us through the end of the year where most of the major launches come out. And hey, if it does coincide with the fact that the world doesn't suck as much as it did a couple days ago, or a year ago, and as things get better, I think this will only amplify that experience. So I am very excited. I am very cautiously optimistic, but I want to hear from you guys. Leave some comments below. Let me know your thoughts on E3 2021. What do you want to see? What do you think would really wow you in terms of presentation? Because I'm not entirely convinced these guys have it entirely figured out, but we're going to give them the benefit of the doubt because that's really all we have. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please take care of yourselves. And until next time, I will see you guys on the other side.